I accidentally washed her armor. The alien girl froze and asked, "Do you know what that means?" Marcus wiped his hands on the grease-stained rag and surveyed the maintenance bay of the Harmony station. Another day, another dozen pieces of equipment that needed his human touch to keep functioning. The other species on the station were brilliant in their own ways, but none of them seemed to have that peculiar human knack for making broken things work again. He was about to call it a day when he noticed the pile of armor plates stacked haphazardly in the corner. They belonged to Zixara, the Veltar warrior who'd been assigned to the station's security detail 3 months ago. The Kitness plates were covered in what looked like dried ichor from her last patrol mission. Something about pirates in the outer rim. Marcus frowned. The poor girl had been working double shifts ever since the incident with the smugglers, and she looked exhausted. Her usually pristine blue-black carapace had grown dull, and those expressive compound eyes of hers seemed dimmed with fatigue. Without really thinking about it, Marcus gathered up the armor pieces. The Veltar were proud warriors, sure, but everyone needed help sometimes. He'd seen how meticulous Zixara was about her equipment. This couldn't be intentional neglect. The industrial washers in the lower bay were designed for heavy-duty cleaning of starship components, but Marcus had modified one years ago for more delicate work. He carefully loaded each piece of Zixara's armor, adjusting the cleaning agents and temperature settings. The Veltar exoskeleton was similar to arthropod shells from Earth, keratin-based proteins that could handle gentle detergents in warm water. As the washer hummed through its cycle, Marcus continued his other repairs. He was elbow-deep in a malfunctioning atmospheric processor when he heard the distinctive click-clack of Veltar footsteps approaching rapidly. "Human Marcus," came Zixara's melodious voice, though it carried an unusual tension. "I cannot locate my armor. The security terminal indicates it was last detected in this sector." Marcus straightened up, wiping his hands again. "That's my fault. I noticed it looked pretty banged up from your last mission, so I threw it in the washer. Should be done in about—" the timer chimed. "Write it out now, actually." The effect of his words on Zixara was immediate and dramatic. Her antennae went rigid, her compound eyes widened to nearly twice their normal size, and she went completely still. A behavior Marcus had learned indicated extreme shock or fear in her species. You washed my armor?" she whispered, her translator struggling with the emotional undertones in her native language. "Yeah, it looked like you hadn't had time to clean it properly. Don't worry, I used the gentle cycle and—" "Do you know what that means?" Zixara interrupted, her voice barely audible. Marcus paused, suddenly worried he'd made some terrible cultural mistake. "I was trying to help. I know how hard you've been working, and I thought—" "Among my people," Zixara said slowly, "armor is sacred. It is grown from our own bodies, shaped by our own hands, and maintained by our own efforts. To touch another's armor without permission is—" she struggled for words. "It is intimate beyond measure." Marcus felt his face flush with embarrassment. "God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I was just trying to—" "But to clean another's armor," she continued, still in that stunned whisper. "To care for it as if it were your own. This is something done only between the closest of bondmates. It is a declaration of—" again she seemed to search for the right translation, "of protective devotion, of willingness to share burdens." The maintenance bay fell silent, except for the distant hum of the station's life support systems. Marcus stared at the alien warrior, his mind racing. He thought about the past months,
about how he'd found himself looking forward to her visits to the maintenance bay, about how her presence had somehow made the endless routine of repairs seem less tedious. "Zixara," he said carefully, "what if I told you that I did know what it meant?" Her antennae twitched, a sign of surprise among her people. "But you are human. Your species does not have such customs." Marcus smiled, moving to the washer and carefully removing the first piece of armor. It gleamed like polished obsidian, every scratch and dent cleaned away, every joint lubricated and smooth. "Maybe we don't have the exact same customs, but we understand taking care of people we—" He paused, meeting her compound gaze. "People we care about." Zixara's chitinous plate shifted, the Veltar equivalent of a blush. "You would truly share this burden with me, knowing what it means to my people?" "Zixara, I've been sharing your burdens for months without knowing what it meant to your people." Marcus held out her breastplate, noting how the cleaning had revealed the intricate patterns etched into its surface, patterns that told the story of her achievements, her lineage, her hopes. "This changes things between us," she said softly. "I know. The others will talk. A human and a Veltar. Let them talk." Marcus handed her another piece of armor. "I've never been one to worry much about what others think. One of the advantages of being human, I guess. We're stubborn like that." For the first time since he'd known her, Zixara made the chittering sound that was Veltar laughter. "Yes, I have noticed this about your species. You are remarkably unconcerned with conventional wisdom." As she strapped on the cleaned armor, Marcus watched the transformation. The warrior he'd come to admire was returning, but now there was something else in her bearing, a warmth, an openness that hadn't been there before. "Marcus," she said as she secured the final piece, "would you teach me about human customs of care? I find myself curious about your people's ways of sharing burdens." Marcus grinned, already reaching for his tools. After all, her weapons needed maintenance too, and he had a feeling this was going to be the start of a very interesting partnership. The galaxy might be vast and full of different species with their own ways of doing things, but some things, like caring for someone who mattered to you, seemed to be universal. I'd be happy too. Fair warning, though, humans can be a bit overwhelming when we care about someone. Zixara's compound eyes sparkled with what Marcus was beginning to recognize as mischief. "I believe I can handle it, human Marcus. After all, you have already seen me at my most vulnerable." As she walked away, armor gleaming and step lighter than it had been in weeks, Marcus reflected on the strange turns life could take. He'd come to Harmony Station to fix broken things, and somehow he'd ended up finding something he hadn't even known was missing. Sometimes, he thought, the best repairs were the ones you never saw coming.